this video, we're going to do another example of factoring using the AC grouping method. So again, when I have a trinomial, I could put a general form, which would be ax squared plus bx plus c, where a is the coefficient of the squared term, b is the coefficient of the x to the first power, and c is the constant term. Anytime I'm factoring, I always want to first ask myself, is there a GCF, a greatest common factor between the terms? And when I look at these three terms, I do see a common factor. They have a common factor of 2. So my first step is going to be to factor that 2 out. And if I factor 2 out, I'd be left with 12x squared divided by 2, which is 6x squared, minus 14x divided by 2, 7x, minus 6 divided by 2, which is 3. So that's my first step, factoring out the GCF. Now I look at what remains to be factored. I have a trinomial, and I see I have a not equal to 1. The coefficient of the squared term in this case is 6, not 1. So I can use my AC grouping method. And again, there's other methods we could use, such as trial and error, but this particular video is about the AC grouping method. So my first step is to find AC and its factor pairs. So in this trinomial I have remaining, if I look at A times C, A, the coefficient of the squared term is 6, and C, the constant term, is a negative 3. So I have 6 times negative 3, which gives me a negative 18. My next step then is to do the factor pairs, and the factor pairs of 18 are 1 times 18, 2 times 9, and 3 times 6. So I know that I'm going to have one of these as a positive and one as a negative for each factor pair because their product is a negative number, so I need one of each sign. So on my next step, I'm looking to choose the factor pair where the sum equals b. In this particular problem, in my trinomial that I'm factoring, b is at this point negative 7. So I'm going to have two numbers that multiply to make negative 18 and add to make negative 7. I know that if two numbers add to make a negative, that the bigger of the two has to be negative. So when I look down my list, I find that 2 and negative 9 would work because 2 plus negative 9 equals negative 7, and I know that 2 times negative 9 equals negative 18. So my AC is negative 18 and my B is negative 7. So my next step is to split the middle term using the chosen factor pair. So let me just kind of write where I started. I started with 12x squared minus 14x minus 6. I factored out a 2, and now I'm going to just put kind of a bracket to kind of show what I still have left to be factored inside was the 6x squared minus 7x minus 3. So I just have determined that I'm going to split that middle term into 2 and negative 9. So when I do that, I can choose either of those two terms first. I could put 2x minus 9x, or I could put the minus 9x plus 2x. When I have a choice, I usually put the minus, the negative one, first. I think it makes that factoring a little easier, but it doesn't matter. I could put it either direction. So I'm going to split out that middle term. I still have this 2 outside in my brackets. The first term is 6x squared. Instead of minus 7x, I'm going to put a minus 9x plus 2x. And my last term is still minus 3. So again, I check, and I always want to take a minute and double check. Negative 9 plus 2 is negative 7. Make sure that those two terms combine to make what you had before, so these expressions are equivalent. Once I've done that, then I can go ahead and take my new 4-term polynomial, and I can use factor by grouping. So inside my bracket, my first two terms have a greatest common factor of 3x. So when I pull that out, I'm left with a 2x minus 3. And my second two terms don't have any greatest common factor that I see, so I have to always pull something out, even if it is only, in this case, 1. Now I see these matching factors, so I can complete my factorization. I have the 2 that I've had out in front, and then I have this binomial 2x minus 3, and my other binomial is what is left, 3x plus 1. So here's the factorization of 12x squared minus 14x minus 6. Here, that is my answer. If I wanted to check my answer, I could do a check, and the way we check an answer is by multiplication and seeing if we multiply our answer, we'll get back to our original trinomial. So remember, if you multiply 3 different terms, here, excuse me, not 3 different terms, 3 factors, we can do that by first multiplying any 2 of them together. So I'm going to multiply the first 2 together with distributive property. So I'll get a 4x minus 6. And then I'm going to multiply that result by the last factor, and I'll do that with FOILing. And when I get to the end of that FOIL, I can compare it back to my original equation. And sure enough, 12x squared minus 14x minus 6. So it does check out, and I feel good about my answer.